Welcome to a new session, and in this session we are going to learn how to set up a EFS instance on the AWS platform. All right, let me type it out for you. That is EFS, okay, or the Elastic File System. So the specialty of Elastic File System is that we know that the EBS volume, one EBS volume can be attached only to one instance, and that too within only the same availability zone. What if I want to have a file system which can span across multiple regions, which can span across multiple zones? All right. So how am I going to do that? So that is where the concept of the elastic file system comes in. And the elastic file system is built based on the NFS, or it is the network file system, which is a age-old system used for providing connectivity to file systems over the network on the Unix platform. All right. So this is more specific to the Unix and Linux world. So let's see how to set up this file system and how to provision a single elastic file system, one single EFS volume to multiple instances within a region or even across the regions also. All right. So let's start this. And there is a quick knack here, so you have to be very cautious when you are watching this. All right. So the first step here is that I have to go ahead and create a security group. The first step is to create a security group. Okay. So go ahead and for the purpose of this particular demonstration, I'm using Oregon. All right. I'm not using Northern Virginia. I'm using Oregon. And let me first remove the older security groups so that we have a better view on the only security groups available on the system. All right, so I have only one security group right now. Okay, so the first step is to create a security group, and we will call this security group as SSH NFS incoming. Okay, SG. And let me copy this into the description also. All right. And in the inbound rules, what I am going to do is I am going to add the SSH incoming connectivity. All right. I'll put it as 0.0.0.0/0. And let me add another rule, which is the NFS. Okay. And see here, NFS is using port number 2049. And for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add the 0000 just for now. Okay, so please be mindful here what I am doing. Okay, so now let me create a security group. So remember, this is going to allow incoming SSH connectivity and incoming NFS connectivity also. All right, so this is the first step. In the next step, what we are going to do is we are going to create another security group, and in this security group, we are going to call it another way. And in this security group, we are going to call it as NFS outgoing security group. Okay. NFS outgoing security group. We will put this into the description also. Now I am going to add a rule here, and the only rule that I need to add in here is click in the NFS and your source. Your source has to be selected the previous security group which we created, SSH NFS incoming. Okay. Remember, I'm calling this as the outgoing because from here only the NFS is going to be served. So that is why I'm calling this particular security group as the NFS outgoing security group. Okay. And where I am going to allow the connections from, I'm going to allow the connections from the SSH NFS incoming. Okay. And once I have set up this, let me create the security group. Good. Now comes the important part. Now go back to the older security group which we created earlier, which is the SSH NFS incoming security group, and go and edit this security group settings. Okay. Go and edit the inbound rules. Now, don't try to, just delete it and add it. I would highly suggest you delete this whole line and add a new rule. All right. So I'll put in as NFS, and here what I have to do is I have to use the NFS outgoing security group. Okay, and let me save the rule. All right, so I have created two security groups. Now the next step is, let me go and create the first instance. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to connect it to two different instances within an entire region. Okay, so we'll split it across the three availability zones, different availability zones within the same region. All right, so let me go and click on instances first. Okay, so let me go and launch an instance first, and I'll put this as Amazon Linux, and I will leave it as T2 micro. And the first availability zone, okay, there are four availability zones in the Oregon region, so I'll put it in 3 only. Okay, so 2A, I'm putting one server there. Add storage. All right, add tags, configure security group, and in this security group, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the SSH NFS incoming security group, which means that I'm going to open the port on the server for incoming connections for the SSH port from anywhere in the world, and I'm going to allow incoming connections for NFS on port 2049 from the specific source security group only, and this specific source security group will be assigned to the EFS volume. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and click review and launch, and I'm going to hit on launch now, and I'm going to proceed without a key pair here because I'm going to use the EC2 instance connect to connect to the machine. So the first instance is launching now. Okay, let me go ahead and launch the second instance also. All right, let me hit select and configure instance details, and I'll put it into the 2B availability zone. Add storage, add tags, configure security group, and I'm going to use the same SSH NFS incoming security group. Review and launch. Let me launch the instance now. I'll go for proceed without a key pair. I acknowledge that without a key pair I can connect to this instance. Launch instance. Alright, so now that we have two instances which have been spun up, and one instance is in the 2A US West 2A availability zone, and another one is in the US West 2B availability zone in the Oregon region. Okay, alright, so the next step, let me go back here, and now what I want to do is I want to go and spin up the EFS volume. So for that, go and click on services here and type EFS. Click on the search bar and type for EFS. The moment you type in EFS, you will see the EFS here, managed file storage for EC2. So click on this one. Yes, so now we are entering into the Elastic File System Management dashboard. So I don't have any Elastic File System already existing in this environment, so I can see it here. All right. So now, before diving deeper, I just want to give you a quick, update on the type of EFS storage. Okay. So we have standard storage type here, and you can see the price is 30 cents per GB. Then standard infrequent access storage, which is 0.025 cents per GB. One zone storage, which is 0.16 cents per GB, and one zone infrequent access storage, which is 0.0133 per GB. So the rates are at the time that I am recording this video. So the prices may come down or it may go up. And remember, this price is not the same across all the regions. All right. So the prices also will vary according to the region where you are going to spin up the service. So let's say if you're going to spin up a service in Singapore, the price is going to be a little higher. Or if you're going to be spinning up the EFS volume in Seoul, so the price may be different. It may be lesser or it may be more. So it all depends upon where you are going to spin up this service from. All right. Okay. So now the first step, let me go ahead and create the file system. So I'll be explaining about the difference between the storage and infrequent access. I'll show it, when we're doing the actual creation. All right. So create file system, and I will call this as EFS wall 1. All right. Let me call this as EFS wall 1, and the next option is availability and durability. So the difference here is regional and one zone. That is the primary difference here. So when I mean regional, what it means is data will be accessible across the entire region. All right, and the data is also going to be replicated, okay, across the region. So that is what it means, the regional or the one zone. When I select one zone, what happens is the data is going to be sitting only within the single zone in which I am going to choose. But for the purpose of this demonstration, let me keep it regional. All right. So let me go ahead and click on customize. Please do not create here. Let's go and click on customize here. Okay. All right. So once I go on to customize, I can see the file system settings. So let's go deeper into it now. So we have EFS volume 1. I've selected regional already. So now I have the option to enable automatic backups on this particular volume. Okay, EFS volume. So let's say I want it to be backed up, over a period of time, or specific time. All that is done from this particular option. So, but remember, there is going to be an additional pricing involved when we are going to enable the automatic backups. Why? Because your backups are also going to occupy the space, and you are going to pay for the space of your backup also. So I'm not going to do that for the purpose of this demonstration. I'm going to be disabling this one. So it says we recommend that you create a backup policy for your system. Let me just leave it as it is. Next comes the lifecycle management. So this is a EFS intelligent tiering lifecycle management tool. So what happens with this lifecycle management is, since we are going to be paying a lot of since there's going to be a considerable cost in running this EFS service, using the EFS service from AWS, what AWS does is they're telling us, okay, if you're not going to be using the data, all right, frequently, so move it to a different class of a storage, and I can reduce the price for you. All right, so that is what AWS is telling us. All right, so to utilize that particular option from the platform, so you see the option here, transition into IA. So transition into IA meaning infrequently accessed. So remember, this is not a one zone one, because we are using the regional service. This is a standard storage pricing we are going to be using here. So let's say 30 days since access. So what do I mean by 30 days since access is, since last access is, when you access a file within the EFS file system, and after 30 days, if that specific file has not been accessed by anyone or any application, then that data will be moved into the infrequently accessed storage. That way, the pricing is going to be coming down, and we are going to have a considerable cost savings there. Okay, so I can choose whichever I want. I'll just leave it at 7 days since last access for now. And the next option is, see, this is transition into IA. So when should I move the data into the IA? So the next option is transition out of IA. So when should I move the data out of the infrequently accessed? So the only option here is on first access, which means that the moment the data is going to be touched, or the moment the file is going to be touched, that data will go back into the standard storage from the infrequently accessed, and you will start getting billed based on the pricing of the standard storage from that day. All right. So this is the lifecycle management of the EFS volume. And remember, this concept of lifecycle management is going to be applied at many places. All right. Many other services also uses the same lifecycle management. We will see there. The next option is the performance mode. Okay, so what is the demand that is going to be on this particular volume? Is it going to be a huge IO that is going to be happening? So what is this IO? IO means the amount of writes to the particular volume, the amount of reads from the volume, So if it is going to be a normal one, and if you don't see a huge or a steep curve there or a steep climb, and if it's going to be considerably normal, then you can go for the general purpose one. However, if you think that this particular volume is going to be having a requirement of a high throughput and operations per second because of the number of people accessing the data or the total amount of data that is going to be sitting on that particular volume and the number of applications that is going to be accessing, if you find that you really need more IO operations on this particular volume, go for the max IO. All right. However, for the purpose of this demonstration, I will leave it at general purpose only. The next one is the throughput mode. So this was the performance mode. This one is the throughput mode. So how much throughput am I going to be getting? Okay. So this is bursting. So we know what is bursting means. So depending upon the demand, you get the, the AWS will flex itself and allow more throughput for us. And the next option that we have here is the provisioned option, which means that you get a consistent throughput value. All right. Let's say if I want 125 MIBS. All right. See here, the price for the throughput alone is going to be costing me $750 a month. So it is quite an expensive service. So you have to reevaluate the requirement. If it is required, then you go for the provisioned one. Otherwise, go for the bursting one, wherein based upon the requirement, there is going to be throughput expansion provided by AWS. The next option is the encryption. So do you want to encrypt the data, or do you don't want to just leave it as unencrypted? So I'm going to be leaving as unencrypted here. All right, and the tags as usual. So I'll call this as EFS, and the tag name I'll call it as Vol1. All right, and let me go to the next dashboard, and here is the important part of it. So now what I want to do is I have to go and remove all these security groups, because why? By default, all of them are trying to access, the mount points are all trying to access the security group, the original default security group. But now we need to assign the security group of NFS outgoing security group here. Why? We want connections to allow outgoing connections, right? So the incoming I have given it into the server one, so outgoing I'm giving it into the EFS volume. All right, so NFS outgoing security group, and I'll choose the NFS outgoing security group also, and the fourth one also I'll do that. Good. So remember, what I'm doing is NFS outgoing security group. Let's go and review this data once again. So let me go to the security groups, and within the security groups, we have SSH NFS incoming security group. Here we have two rules. So one rule is allowing the connections for SSH from anywhere around the world, and another one is the NFS connections from 04, this 33F57, the 33F57 is actually the NFS outgoing security group. So the security group which I am assigning to the NFS volume is going to be allowed as the incoming connection for the NFS on the server, and here on the NFS instance, on the NFS, let's just go back and look into the second one. NFS outgoing security group, what we have done is we have allowed incoming connections on port 2049 from the server's, security group. So the server's security group was, just a second. So the server security group was, it should be A4A3ED. Let's just confirm that also. Just a second, please. Yes, so that is the security group ID 4A3ED. So that has been assigned correctly here. Okay. All right. So now no changes have been done. So we just verified that. So everything seems to be good on the security group. So security group is the key here, guys. Okay. All right. So now the EFS part, let's continue here. The next step is, let me go and click on next. Okay. So this is the file system policy that you want to go and edit, or you want to give more, you want to strengthen your access to the NFS, you can go and edit the policy using JSON, but we're not going to do that right now. I'll move ahead. All right, so this is for reviewing it. So name, performance mode, general purpose, throughput, I just leave it at bursting. Encrypted, I have not selected it. So transition into IA 7 days since last access, which means that if a file is not accessed for the past 7 days, on the 8th day, the file will be moved into infrequent access and the pricing will come down for us for the storage. And if somebody is trying to access that file, and immediately it will be moved back into the standard storage, and you will be billed based on the standard storage pricing. Okay. All right. So the mount targets have been set correctly. We already did that. So let me go and click on create. Okay. Remember, EFS volume is built based on the amount of data that gets deposited into that specific account progressively. So as data flows into that particular EFS volume, only then you are going to be charged. All right. So AWS does not charge you for the EFS service. What they charge you is for the data that is stored within the EFS service. All right. So the file system has been successfully created. It is showing this is the volume name, the ID. It is encrypted. As of now, we just have a file size of the total size. Probably it's got the indexing data in there. The file system is available, and the availability zone is regional. All right, so which means that we have set up the file system. Now let's test the file system. So the first step is, let me go and let me duplicate this first, because I have two instances where I want to start this. So let me go and connect to the first instance. Okay. All right, so the first instance is coming up now. Good. Now, what I want you to do is become the root user, and how am I going to mount it? Okay, to mount that, it is very simple here. Select the volume and click on view details. So the moment you click on view details, you have this page opening up, and here you will have this option called attach. Okay, so click on attach and you will have a pop-up open up like this. So it will tell you whether you want, it's going to give you all the command options, whether you want to mount via the DNS or if you want to mount via the IP. So for the purpose of this demonstration, I will do it with the DNS only. So the command that we need to use here is the mount-TEFS-OTLS, the file system name :/EFS. So which means that EFS is the mount point, right? So the first step what we need to do is we need to create the mount point on the instance. Okay, so let me go and create a directory. I'll call it as EFS. So you can create the EFS directory wherever you want. You know how to mount a file system from EBS already. So I'll create the EFS mount point from the root directory itself. All right. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and copy this line. Okay. Let me go and copy this line, and I'm going to paste it. It's going to throw me an error. Just watch it. Okay. I've changed the path to root EFS correctly. Now let me hit enter, and it is telling me unknown file system type as EFS. The reason that we are getting this error is because we need to install a package into this operating system for the operating system to detect the EFS file system. So to do that, the step that we need to follow is yum install Amazon-EFS-utils space -y. I don't want to give yes in between, so I'll define yes now itself. All right, so the Amazon EFS utils has been successfully installed. So now let me try to mount it. There, and it got mounted successfully. Remember, if your file system is not mounting, the first step that you'll have to check is check on your security groups. If your security groups are right, your EFS will get mounted correctly. And also remember about your mount point, the path of your mount point. Okay, because here they will be specifying only the EFS. They'll simply give it as EFS. You want to use like something like EFS wall or new wall 2, whatever name you want to use, it's up to you. All right. But for the purpose to keep it more generic at the moment, we are keeping it as EFS. So it is successfully mounted. All right. So let me cd to the EFS and let me create a few files. Test1, test2, test3. Okay. So I have created a few files there. And I can see test1, test2, test3. I have 3 files which are created within this first instance. Let me now go to the second instance. All right. So again, let me go to the second instance, hit on connect and connect. Yes. So repeat the same process as you did on the first instance. Okay. So the first step is become the root. Then make sure to install the Amazon EFS utils. All right, let's make the directory mkdir EFS. And let us mount it now. Now let me cd to the mount point. And whatever files were created in the first instance are now I can see in the second instance also. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll meet you in the next session.